Yes, sir. Mm-mm. How's everybody doing? Grand Rising, good people. I'm gonna be the first in the chat. I'm gonna be the first in the chat. Stop playing with me. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. How was everybody's weekend? Hold on. Hold up. Let me put that on Do Not Disturb. How was everybody's weekend? Hope everybody had an amazing Easter. Got to spend some time with the family. Oh wait, that's right. Hold on. I forgot when I adjust my camera. Relax. Relax. I forgot when I adjust the camera that it does shut off the music. But when I'm done with it, it should come right back on. So my apologies. Let me get my daily dose of island ting. But yeah, so we got a lot of things to cover today. We got a lot of things to cover. Let me go to my notes. Let me go to my notes. The first day of April. Shout out to that. The year is flying by. As you do join, please make sure that you're liking. It's going to help the algorithm. Going to help as many different people from different perspectives have this conversation with us as possible. And that's the only way that we're going to grow. That's the only way we're going to grow. So we were supposed to touch on Joe Rogan on Friday. So we're going to touch on him today. Some things that he said that I think may be a representation of a shift that is potentially happening or getting ready to happen. We see a lot of back and forth with this Biden. the headlines: Biden declares Easter Sunday transgender visibility. We're going to get into that. R.I.P. King Nip, man. King Nip came across some videos and pictures of Nip, and maybe we could touch on a couple different things that we learned from his legacy. Oh, I do want to look up this study. So this study that compares the strength of men before to now. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. How was y'all weekend? Got my coffee ready today. Got up, read. I got my daily non-negotiables over here, which is read 13 pages a day. Send OG.com to 5 people. Maybe y'all can help me with that. Meditate, stretch. Those are the non-negotiables. So the earlier that I can get those done in the day, the better for me. So I already read, already meditated, already stretched. So it's looking good today. It's looking good today. It doesn't look like I can. I need to find this study. Maybe y'all can help me find that study a little bit later on. 6 years old compared to those today. Let's see. Matter of fact, I'm gonna text my boy to send me that study. Let me text Dre. Yo, so this weekend, man, this weekend was exactly what I wanted it to be. This weekend was exactly, I'm gonna tell you guys in a second. So I'm asking my boy Dre to see if he could tell me. So I interviewed my boy Dre, who's doing the Healthy Deviance for us on OG.com. It's my brother, man. He's 23 years old, going on 24. Just a solid human being. Makes us feel good about the world or the generations that we're leaving the world in. And he was telling me about a study, so I want to get that, to y'all. And then we also did a Claire talk. So I had Ev. Well, I didn't have Ev. Ev and EK. They came through. We did a show, of course, for the first 30 minutes. The volume, the mics weren't working. I didn't even know. So it was just showing me. It's just, you can still hear it. It's just not mic, studio quality. But for the next hour, we got the studio quality and everything like that. So we're going to be releasing both of those this week. The one with Dre, I'll probably release all together. Just release the entire episode. Claire Talk will probably break that down. But, things may change. Shout out to my brother Ursi. My boy Ursi. So when I tell y'all that this weekend was everything that I wanted it to be, man, I'm amped. I'm amped, bro. So Ursi, hold on. And let me know, yo, real quick. What's good, big bro? Shout out to Doug in the building. Shout out to Doug in the building. Yo, so if anybody can tell me real quick, when I mute like this, and then whenever I go to like blow my nose, can y'all still hear me? So I'm gonna do a test. Because the other day I was listening to the show and I was like, hold on, and I thought I muted, but y'all heard me blow my nose and nobody told me that it wasn't muted. But so let me know. Did y'all hear that? If not, it's all good. It don't matter. It don't matter. We're gonna get into the show. Let's get into the show. All right, all right. So what are we gonna start off with today? What do we gotta start off with today? I want to start off actually with letting y'all know something that I am extremely proud of. Something that I am extremely proud of, and that's to be an American, and it's to be a human being. I'm proud of us. Let me actually hold on. Let me ask you a question. Were y'all hearing? Did y'all hear the music when I was playing it? Because I want to kind of. I'm thinking I should put a little music on in the back of this. But you know what? No, we won't. We'll do that after. We'll do that after. Good decision making. All right. So let me pour a little bit of this coffee, and then we're gonna get into why I'm proud, and maybe y'all can tell me a little bit. Well, actually, no. And then I got it. So we're gonna get into this prepared speech that I wrote. Not a prepared speech, but just to touch on some of these notes that I wrote down. I want to share with y'all a piece of this writing for Napoleon Hill. I think it's in his book, but I think it's actually somebody else's that he was quoting. And we're gonna just go. All right, so let me take a sip of this Wonder Matt MJ's Secret Juice from Space Jam. Mushroom coffee. All right, so how proud am I to be American? How proud am I to be American? We've got to a point where we're not using and controlling others with race-baiting differences. The majority of Black Americans feel that America has made it stronger. Matter of fact, change of plans. Change of plans. Change of plans. We're actually going to switch that. That's a little bit on the deeper. We're actually going to switch that. I'm going to read from you. I'm going to read for you a quote from the book. I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm switching it up, but y'all look at it later on. Who never has suffered, he has lived but hath. Who never failed, he never strove or sought. Who never wept is stranger to a laugh. And he who never doubted, never thought. All right, so a lot of thoughts were going through my mind with this. And I'm on the chapter in Law of Success where Napoleon Hill is focusing on the importance of failure. The importance of failure. And when it comes to this importance of failure, there's a lot of things that go into it. But one of the main takeaways that I got was that people that are successful, they learn to not only learn from their losses so they don't turn into failures. You know, you can lose, that's temporary defeat. You can get defeated. But when we don't learn from and get better from that temporary defeat, then it turns into a failure. And he was saying that not only do successful people that he studied, learn from their own failures, but they learn to capitalize on other people's failures. So that's something that we learned very early on. That everybody doesn't have to touch the stove to know that it's warm, to know that it's hot, to know that you'll burn yourself. Everybody doesn't have to touch the stove. And as this, concept of failure and learning how to deal with failure and approach failure, as I was breaking it down to myself, or processing it, I should say, I kept thinking about the weekend being Easter. So I looked up a couple different videos yesterday on resurrection. Matter of fact, let me read the resurrection for you. Resurrection. I looked up a bunch of different videos, looked up the meaning, and the meaning is okay, resurrect. Okay. Resurrect. Is that a word? I think so. Okay, resurrect. To restore a dead person to life. To restore life. All right, so resurrect. So as I'm thinking about Easter and I'm thinking about the different sacrifices, when I was looking at the video, I was like, what is Easter really about? So I just, YouTube, Googled, the meaning of Easter, and I kept just thinking about sacrifice. Everything that came to mind was sacrifice. Sacrifice, the sacrifice of Jesus, as is displayed in the Bible, and as it's displayed in, I guess, the videos that I was watching, of how much sacrifice came about from Jesus. And that got me thinking about purpose. And I realized that when you have a purpose that's greater than self, when you have a purpose that is beyond anything that you are just trying to achieve for monetary gain, to get, I don't know, the newest car, to get a new house. Not to say that those aren't important, especially even in the book Law of Success, Napoleon Hill touches on the fact that um, he believes that it's important for people to have certain goals that are directly associated with monetary success and buying things that have monetary value. But when I was revisiting my purpose, I kept coming back to my who and then my what. And it was, who am I doing this for? And what am I doing it for? And a lot of the things that were circling in my mind were that I may not be doing exactly something that's in my purpose. When it comes to a lot of us, whether it's our jobs or things that we're spending the majority of our time doing, it can become discouraging and kind of have me at least a little bit lost when I was so entrenched with doing something that I did not feel aligned with my overall purpose. But there's still value in it because I understood that that was just a certain step in the journey to develop some of the skills that I needed to develop the mindset, to develop the discipline, to develop the consistency, that I was going to allow every experience to impact me along this journey of me living in this purposeful abundance that we always talk about. So the who and the what. Who am I doing this for? When we talk about inspiration and motivation, all these different things, no matter what your goal is, one of the things that has helped me that may help you is reminding myself of who I'm doing it for. Who? When we talk about our why, this is just thinking about the who in that why. Who am I doing it for? Why am I doing this? I'm gonna tell you exactly why. Who? My parents, my family, just my future family, society, my community, across the board. That's really who's included in my who. And I prioritize accordingly. And then my what? What am I sacrificing for? I'm sacrificing for the big picture. I'm sacrificing for us to be able to live in a purposeful abundance that we all are enjoying, that we all feel that we're bringing a certain level of good to humanity, and that maybe most importantly, as I'm just going off, just speaking as the thoughts are coming to me, maybe most importantly to convince people that we truly are what that sign says, immortal. We're immortal and we can do anything. We can accomplish anything that we're willing to sacrifice for. So now bringing it full circle, now you can kind of understand why I was kind of caught up on this concept of sacrifice, purpose, just based on Easter. When you know who you're doing it for, when you know what you're doing it for, then you understand your why a little deeper than others. And it allows you to go to depths and sacrifice and to have the right mindset in going through these experiences in order to make significant differences, in order to stand up for things when you do not, when everybody else is not on board, when you may be risking something, when you may be going off in a direction that has been untraveled. All these different things, they're centered around, or you're gonna have a certain level of armor and inspiration and urgency when you connect it to your who and your what. So maybe a good thing for us to do, maybe after the show or as we're going through the show, is to remind ourselves of who we're doing this for, what we're doing it for, because that directly impacts our why. So now when we go through, I know we kind of circled around uh, to this quote. I'll read it again. Who never has suffered, he has lived but happy. Who never failed, he never strove or sought. Who never wept is stranger to a laugh, and he who never doubted never thought. This encompasses a lot of the concepts in this chapter, and just breaking it down line by line. Who never has suffered, he has lived but happy. We cannot be scared to suffer. Any accomplishment, any large goal that we want to achieve, anything comes with a certain level of sacrifice and suffering. So if we run from suffering, then we're never going to get to reach our fullest potential, and we're never going to make an impact on ourselves, on society, on our communities in the necessary ways that we need, because we're too scared to go through a suffering process and a process that requires sacrifice. Who never failed, he never strove or sought. We talked about this the other day. If I've never failed, let's say just working out, lifting weights, how do I know how much weight I'm able to lift? If I'm so scared of failing, then how will I know what my limitations are? How will I know? Forget limitations. Let's look at it different. How will I know what my capabilities are? Capabilities are just defined based on limitations, right? So let's kind of reverse that and define it based. Let's define it, prioritize the capability aspect of it. If I'm scared of failing, if I'm scared to fail, then I'm never going to know. I'm never going to know my capabilities, and I'm never going to be able to learn from those failures that come. Because think about it, a defeat, a failure in the short term, that's the most valuable tool that we can have, because it's the thing that's going to show us exactly where we need to improve and how much we need to improve. Okay, next line. Who never wept is stranger to a laugh. Y'all know, you can't really experience hot without cold. Who never wept is stranger to a laugh. And he who never doubted never thought. Let's be real. We all have doubts. We all have doubts. And we can't be scared of doubts. Being scared of doubts is it's gonna push us to a position where we're only doing things that we're confident in. We have to embrace doubts. We have to embrace doubt. We have to embrace, certain level of fear that may come with a lot of these things, especially the bigger the goal that we have, the bigger the desires, the bigger the achievements that we want to have. It's going to come with a certain level of doubt. But when we can understand it, and when we can, hey, I embrace it even. I embrace it, I understand why, then it allows us to move forward in a way where we can still pursue our overall purpose. So those were some of the thoughts that I was having. It is what it is. Hopefully y'all take heed to them. Hopefully y'all get something from those as well. But now we are going to get into the show. All right, so let's get right into this Joe Rogan deal. Let me see where I have it. I should already have it queued up. Do that. Where are you? Where are you? Yes, I did. All right, so this is an interesting video. Let me see if that actually did. I'll share it. Let's see. Full screen, full screen. All right, so you guys see breaking points. I don't know this group, but just thought that they had a interesting. I thought that the video was interesting, and I thought that we could learn from it. And there's a lot of different concepts in this video that we're going to touch on, and hopefully, it's something that we can grow from. Not approach it with how can I put this as objectively as possible. And we're going to talk a little bit about Mayor Eric Adams later on in the show, and I'm going to give you an example of why we have to be objective with things and how, well, we don't have to do anything, but how being objective with things can unlock some things in us that that we may be missing out on. So I'll just leave it at that. But let's look at this from an objective standpoint and see what we can learn from it and see how we can grow.
And is thinking about this conflict because, you know, to the point of whether the views of these college students are extreme or mainstream at this point, when you have a majority of Joe Biden voters saying this is a genocide, when you have the International Criminal Court of Justice saying that's plausible, when you have a new UN report saying there's reasonable grounds to believe, and now you can add, you have Alex Jones saying it's a genocide. I believe Candace Owens has said similar things. AOC has now come out and said the same. You can add to that growing list of voices Joe Rogan, who made some very interesting comments on his podcast. Let's take a listen.
Even in the right, like, look what's going on with Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. Dude. Like, what did she say? I want to know what she was fired for. Because was it criticism of Israel? Was it, I mean, did she show that Edward Snowden video that he put up on Twitter that shows them drone bombing those kids that are, those men, I should say, unarmed people that were walking towards the rubble that clearly weren't causing any danger to anybody?
Yeah, right.
They just bombed them.
Yeah, no, it's your duty. It's just like for Biden or whoever you like, you're supposed to cover up for them because.
But the whole thing is like they're always saying they're only targeting Hamas and everybody else is a casualty. Well, if those guys are just unarmed civilians and they're walking alone, that's what they appear to be.
Dresden.
And you just blast them from the sky with robots.
This is the tragedy of war.
Yeah, this is insane. And no one knows what to think now because if you can't talk about that, if you can't say that's real, then you're saying that genocide is okay as long as we're doing it. And
that is what we're saying.
And if you're saying that from a perspective of someone who literally went through the Holocaust, or your people, your tribe, went through the fucking Holocaust, and now you're willing to do it?
I hope the irony's not lost on you.
It's so nuts.
All right. Obviously, this is a bit of a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic, but I think it needs to be discussed. And I think that if we don't discuss it, it can end up being one of those situations where we sit back and wonder, how could we have had 300 years of slavery? Or how could a Holocaust have happened? Like, how could the world have allowed that to happen? And it's because people just sit back, mind their business, don't say anything, are caught up in paying their own bills. I can't even worry about this other war, man. They never helped us with this issue. They didn't do. You get what I'm saying? We see where this can go, where we allow certain propaganda to show us one thing, even though it may not necessarily be the truth at all. And I may show you this other video where the New York Times pretty much put out a story. This was a story early on in the Israel-Palestinian conflict, where they pretty much reported on everything that they reported on was wrong. It wasn't valid. And instead of them retracting the article, they simply wrote, amended something, put something there, basically said that, hey, recent things have come out that questions the validity of the person reporting or something. It wasn't even that strong, I don't think, but we're going to get into that. And I just want to remind us, be objective as we're going through this, because the overall goal, this is not an attack on any one group, any one person, but what it is an attack on is on human rights, or what's happening, I should say, is an attack on human rights. And this, what I'm putting an attack on is war. us destroying each other, genocide, all these things that I do believe that it will turn into. And see, when I look at this conflict, I almost look at it as two kids in the class. Let's think about it like this, or two grown men, whatever it may be. If those two men or two kids are fighting, they're each looking to one up each other. The people on the outside, the teachers, the people that have the ability to chime in and work as a group in order to, hey, we gotta, you stand over here, you stand over here, let's figure this thing out. We cannot rely on just the people in the conflict to just work it out. In most situations, the person that's in power is going to beat the hell out of the person who's not in power because they feel that, oh, well, maybe you did this. And especially when there's the fear involved, all right? We have to understand this, that there's a certain level of fear that is involved. If you're familiar with the Jewish culture, then you know that, after the events that I've gone to, there's always a toast. And every single toast that I've heard, I shouldn't say every event that I've gone to, that's wrong. But a number of the events, whether it's the bris, where they do for the young boy, the circumcision, think about that at a bris. For a young boy, they toasted or cheers, not with liquor, but they were just, giving a, toast with it. Whatever. I don't want to miss the point. And they said they tried to kill us. They couldn't. Cheer, like that type of thing. We're still here. That whole never forget mindset. People are scared. So we have to appreciate the fact that people are scared, but what ends up happening is exactly what Joe Rogan just described. One second. In my opinion, what has ended up happening is exactly what has happened with the LGBTQ community and exactly what happened with Black Lives Matter, where the bullied can easily turn into the bully based on fear, based on greed, based on resentment, based on get back, whatever it is. I'm not saying that each group is focused on all of them, but different groups, attach themselves to different plights, different reasoning as to why they need to now turn what was happening to them onto somebody else. And a lot of it is just based out of fear, in my opinion. So I think that as we're objectively watching this video, that we have to understand that it is very easy for the person that believes that they are bullied to eventually turn into the bully. We've seen it with the LGBTQ community. We've seen it with Black Lives Matter. And in my opinion, based on the information that I'm seeing, we are going to see it, or we're beginning to see it with the Israel-Palestine conflict. Just is what it is. Let's keep going.
It's so hard to imagine that someone where a culture, like a country was like officially founded in what, 47?
48.
48? Okay. Officially founded. So that's so recent. and you guys are willing to do what was done to you that led you to believe that you needed to start your own country? You're willing to do that at least on a small scale in Gaza. Like there's nothing left. If you see the videos, let's see some recent footage of Gaza.
And let me be very clear. We know that these are sensitive topics. Let me be very clear. Nothing will ever be the same. Two things can never be the same. Let me be very clear on that. So for a lot of people who say like, oh, you're doing the same thing that they did. Of course, it's not the exact same. But when you look at it from a humanitarian standpoint, just from human beings, you cannot destroy an entire group of people just based on the fact that you're looking to destroy a certain percentage, a small percentage of them that are terrorists or that are extremists. Imagine if that occurred here in the United States, where innocent civilians were just being killed because of the people that, or imagine like a bank robbery or anything like that. Somebody's held hostage. All right, well, let's just destroy everybody because we know that we got the people in there, you know, that they're bad people. So we'll just kill everybody. We can't do that. So I'm challenging us to just be better as a society, to hold ourselves to a higher standard. This is not right. And maybe this is the first situation to where, just with the line with where I am in life, that I'm looking at it like, I really feel right now, all war is bad. We have to figure out a different way. All war is bad. And matter of fact, as we're speaking about this, I want to bring up another video. We're going off on a couple different tangents, but I think for y'all to fully grasp what's going on in my mental, that it's important for us to take a look at this. Achilles. Okay, I want us to take a look at this. Hold on. You'll understand why I'm saying.
Very good. Perhaps we should have our war tomorrow when you're better rested. I should have you whipped for your impudence.
Perhaps you should fight him.
Achilles. Achilles. Look at the men's faces. You can save hundreds of them.
Hold on, my bad. To properly put it in perspective,
That's why no one will.
you got to show the energy. Hold on. To properly put it in perspective, my apologies. I had to run it back. Y'all are probably wondering, what does this have to do? Just stay with me. Stay with me.
Perhaps we should have our war tomorrow when you're better rested. I should have you whipped for your impudence.
That's G. Achilles.
Perhaps you should fight him.
Achilles. Achilles. Look at the men's faces. You can save hundreds of them. You can end this war with a swing of your sword. Think how many songs they'll sing in your honor. Let them go home to their wives.
My dog. Yo.
Imagine a king who fights his own battles.
Yo, Achilles different, bro.
Of all the warlords loved by the gods, I hate him the most.
We need him, my king.
For now.
This is what war used to be.
Is there no one else? Is there no one else?
All right, why did I just play that? Why did I just play that? Because my boy is that thorough. You want to know why? Because I think that, and I actually wrote down a couple notes on this because this is a sensitive topic, and I understand that. I showed this video because, to me, this type of war, it was man to man. You were seeing You were looking in the person's eyes that you were killing. You were looking in the person's eyes that you were killing. So it couldn't be desensitized to a point where it was not clear what was happening. What Joe Rogan's referring to, and I haven't seen the video. I'm going back and forth on playing it for y'all and watching it for the first time. But when the video shows the drone killing those 4 Palestinians who were just walking, walking, whatever. And I think hit them once, and then one's crawling, and then hit another. And I don't think they were unarmed. I don't think they were armed. They apparently, from everything I heard, like I said, I didn't see the video. I didn't want to watch it. They weren't threatening anything, but they were destroyed. Now, that is a direct contradiction of the reports that we're hearing as far as people just looking for Hamas, right? So, and I was having a lot of different thoughts on this, and maybe this is why they want to ban TikTok, because you think back to a lot of other wars in the past where there wasn't social media and TikTok that could show what was happening in real time so fast that was unfiltered. So before, we used to be propagandized, and we had no check and balance system because we weren't able to get any footage of our own. So a couple questions come to mind. One being, well, shoot, I wonder what they were doing in the past. All the manipulation that was going on because you couldn't keep up with it in real time. You had to be there, or you just had to rely on the reports of the news and the media. So now, as I'm looking at this, I think that with a lot of these drones, like it reminds me of when people are going back and forth and talking crazy to other people behind their keyboards, whether they're typing on Twitter, talking crazy in a way that they know that they would never talk to somebody in person, or if they're on the keyboard writing something because they know that they can hide behind the keyboard or hiding behind a video and not be really in front of somebody. And people act different in those situations. We all have seen it, I'm sure. When we have drones that can destroy people, are we becoming desensitized from how gruesome war is, from how gruesome it is to kill somebody? For what? For what? When we can press a button instead of having to do what Achilles just did. When we could just press a button and kill somebody. Is that why we're so desensitized to doing some of these things? And it makes me wonder why a lot of these, when people do go overseas and fight in the military, you never know what really happens unless you go over there. And it makes me wonder why a lot of those people tend to turn into or can turn into a lot of the quote unquote terrorists, because they're so turned off by what we're doing to other people or what other countries are doing to other people. I'm just saying across the board. I'm not just focusing on America in this conversation. We've been so desensitized with war. We've accepted the fact that killing other people is necessary for us to live in this society. Isn't that a wild concept when you really think about it? We've accepted that killing other people is a necessary thing for us to live in society. It just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well with me. It used to. I used to be perfectly fine with it. I'm going to be totally honest. I used to be fine, eye for an eye. Or I'm not going to say I used to be perfectly fine, but I accepted it. I accepted it. I don't think that I ever thought it was right, but I did accept it. Even to the point where I could remember having a conversation. Bez is here. I remember having a conversation where we went to the Poconos. We went to the Poconos and we were discussing what would, I don't even know why we're having this conversation, but something that came up and we're addressing the proper way to respond to a situation. whether that's risking your life, whatever it may be, just to destroy a threat and make a stand. I'm looking at things differently right now. And I guess that also highlights, as I'm saying this, why it is so important for them to indoctrinate us. Because we can accept a certain way of life, but once we start questioning it, then it's going to change our entire perspective and outlook on everything else. When I accepted that, war is necessary, killing somebody is necessary to ensure that we can live. Kind of a selfish concept when you think about it, right? But I accepted that. And when I accepted that, I was looking at war through a lens based on accepting that, which is completely different than the lens that I look at war now. I'm not okay with it. To be such an advanced society, an advanced group of people, an advanced species, we have to figure out a different way to resolve our differences. Or else, what's going to happen? One person's going to press one button. We are going to have a big reset. Unless we reset ourselves, this world is going to blow up in pieces. This world's going to blow up in pieces unless we just have a reset. Because once we start accepting, because you can always, there's always room for somebody to feel like a victim. There's always room for somebody to feel like a victim. So as soon as we justify this particular group of victims standing up for themselves and killing based on standing up for themselves, then, well, this group of victims should stand up and kill. But what about this group of victims? They should stand up and kill. This group, they should stand up and kill. It's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. Just like we referenced earlier, when you have two kids in the classroom that are fighting, they're each trying to get the last hit. It's never going to stop until one person just can't hit the other person anymore. So until we look at society like that, we're always going to be stuck in this place where we have accepted an ungodly way of living. If we truly believe in God, if we truly believe that we all come from God, right? Then how could we be okay with what's going on right now? How could we celebrate Easter yesterday, but then be okay with all these things that are happening throughout the world, all these cruel things that are happening? Let's keep looking. Let's keep going with the video.
So some really pointed, The Atlantic would say those comments were extremist. But
Greg Abbott would say anti-Semitic.
There you go. Many, and apparently Matt Miller would as well. Talk about that also in my monologue. But I mean, he really goes in. Apparently that video that Al Jazeera obtained, the drone footage of them striking and killing these 4 unarmed civilians who were just walking along in Khan Yunis. I mean, it's horrible to watch. We played just a little bit of it. But if you do watch the whole thing, you see the initial.
And feel free to watch on your own time. I'm not playing that. I really don't even want to put that in my psyche, my subconscious. And perhaps I should, to show me even more how much, and maybe perhaps we all should. We actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we all probably should, because we can't run from reality. We can't run from truth. If something is happening, then we need to know that it's happening, because if we just ignore it, then how are we ever going to fix it? How?
Drone strike. You see one of them at least like crawling after being hit, initially wounded and then hit again, and all of them killed. And, you can't but Hamas that. You can't, human shield that. It's just so naked. And I think one of the things that people have reacted to so strongly, because I've been trying to wrap my head, Emily, around why this video, this seems to have been the thing for Alex Jones. That's what he quote tweeted. It seems to have been, the thing for Joe Rogan. And just judging by the tenor of the commentary and the shift, AOC then comes out shortly thereafter, also calls it a genocide. I've been trying to wrap my head around what it was about this video, because we've seen so many horrors play out in front of our eyes. And I think it's the fact that all the typical justifications are null. You can't, like I said, you can't butt Hamas it. You can't, there's a tunnel there. You can't, you know, it's anti-Semitic to say this. All the normal justifications are, they're not human shields, are kind of null and void. And then there's something so nightmarish and terrifying. Alex Jones called it a robotic mass genocide, I believe, about the fact that they're walking along totally unawares. And then out of the sky, boom, it's over. And also the David and Goliath nature of that. I mean, they're unarmed, they have nothing, right? And everything around them in the video too is complete rubble, as Rogan is saying, right? Look at Gaza, there's nothing left. His guest there says it's like Dresden. They're completely unarmed, they're completely vulnerable. And meanwhile, Israel has this, you know, incredibly high-tech killing technology. And that's what they're up against. And there's something about that video that marked a real turning point for the way a lot of people were viewing this conflict.
So Alex Jones apparently has also been calling Rabbi Shmuley the butt plug rabbi.
They had a debate.
All right, so
He did.
I'm gonna pause here, and I'm gonna show y'all another video as far as the one that I was referencing earlier with the New York Times, and why it's just so important for us to make sure that we're doing our own due diligence at all times and just making sure that we're aware of what's going on, that we're making informed decisions. Now, I understand that this is not a popular subject that people want to talk about, but it is what it is. It just is what it is. We see what's going on. And when we don't realize how much we're getting propagandized, how much we're being fed certain narratives, how much we're being fed certain news, certain videos, certain statistics, in order to just justify the powers that be on either side, just trying to do whatever. And I shouldn't even say on either side, because I haven't really seen it on the Palestinian side, I'm gonna be totally honest. But it reminds me of, and when I say propagandize, people, do we accept the fact that the people that are running America, the people that are running the world, the people that are running countries, heads of households across the board, people will say anything, do anything to justify whatever it is they feel like doing, whatever it is that they're emotionally led to do. It just is what it is. So, or financially led to do, whatever it may be. We saw it in COVID. There were reports that people getting killed in car accidents, then they get tested for COVID, and we're throwing them on as the COVID numbers. We saw what they were doing, trying to mess with our minds, using the fear-baiting tactics of showing the ice trucks, the frozen trucks, throwing all the bodies in there. Why would you try to scare people like that? They were showing one of messing up the hospital, saying it was in New York, but it was really overseas, or vice versa. Like, we see what's going on. I don't know why we give so much credit. And I always say this, I think it's the older generation, like our parents' generations and our grandparents' generations, but why we put so much trust on what we see on the news and what's reported to us. Don't we realize that the government just looks at it as, you know how parents will look at the situation like, hey, I told you, I told you this, I lied to you, but I did it to protect you. Or I told you to do this, even though, it wasn't there. I gave you these reasons, even though those weren't the accurate reasons, but I did it to protect you. Now, imagine somebody doing that, a country that just doesn't care about you. Like, we rationalize it with our parents because we know our parents have our best interests at heart. Oh, we've accepted that. But when it comes to a country, why do we expect people? Like, why would we I don't know. Why do we expect the people that put out the news, the government, why do we expect all these different agencies that profit based on swaying us and manipulating us one way or another? Why do we expect them to be truthful with us? I don't. Now, let's take a look at this story. Get into a little bit of the inaccuracies and how journalism is being reported to us, if you call it that.
What's on your radar, Brianna?
Well, Robbie, the New York Times' mass rape story, Screams Without Words, suffered another blow to its credibility yesterday, this time dealt by the New York Times' own reporting. Yesterday, the Times reported that video taken by an Israeli soldier directly contradicts evidence cited in the Times report, specifically in the original story from last December. An unnamed paramedic alleged that he found the bodies of two partially clothed teenage girls in Kibbutz Be'eri that showed signs of sexual violence. But the video footage now shows three female victims fully clothed with no signs of sexual violence. Residents of the kibbutz say no other teenage girls were killed, admitting the possibility of a simple mistaken identification. And a member of a group from Kibbutz Be'eri that looked into the sexual assault claims told the Times, and I quote, "The story is false."
Did y'all just pick up on that? So I want y'all to go back to when the original situation happened between Israel and Palestine. I shouldn't say the original situation. Hold on 1 second. Just want to look something up. Hold on 1 second. Okay. All right. So just wanted to check something. But on October 7th, when the situation occurred and we were getting reports and moving forward from there, obviously Israel decided to take aim back at Hamas, back and forth. I don't think we'll ever know the true details of it. But when you go into it and are told that people are going into homes and raping people and they're killing and raping people, why are they fabricating these stories? Now, this is what the video footage from the Israeli soldier is showing. What is the need to fabricate these stories? If it's already evil being done, why do we have to fabricate? It's like when they do these documentaries or make movies on people's lives, their lives are already exciting enough. Why do you have to fabricate things? Just tell the truth. And the reason why they're being fabricated is because they're trying to control the narrative and manipulate us with propaganda. Why else would you lie? Why else would you not acknowledge lying? Why else would you put out this information to the public and you know that this information that you're putting out is going to affect people on an emotional level where they're making decisions about who should be killed and who should live? Think about that. The New York Times is putting out information to where Americans are going to look at a situation and either form a mindset of, oh, no, they deserve, they got to go in there and destroy everybody. Or like, oh, wait, what? That didn't happen? Okay, maybe it's a little bit different. If we didn't think that it was going to influence us and change the way that we see things, then why add the extra fabrication? Let's keep going.
The New York Times now appears to be trying to whitewash its complicity in spreading mass rape propaganda by citing other outlets, including the AP, CNN, and the Washington Post, as examples of outlets who also repeated the false account of this unnamed paramedic. But shared guilt is not absolution. Outlets including Electronic Intifada, The Gray Zone, The Intercept, and Mondoweiss debunked this source and other flimsy citations in the mass rape story weeks or even months ago. For example, back on March 4th, The Intercept reported that a spokesperson at Kibbutz Be'eri said the two girls shot were, quote, not subjected to sexual abuse. Of the paramedics...
Is it not enough to just report that the women were shot? Like, why do we have to turn it into a movie where we're exaggerating things? And if we can't trust, it's one thing to get something wrong, but to not correct it. And this is the same thing we've talked about before when it comes to people accusing people of rape or people accusing. We talked about it specifically with rape, but other crimes as well. The outlash and how you put somebody on blast by accusing them of something, the energy is never matched when you're corrected and saying like, oh, well, we were wrong with that. You'll yell about, yo, this happened, they destroyed it. But then when you find out that you're inaccurate, it's like, oh yeah, we were inaccurate with that one. You whisper about it. So the apology or the transparency should match the same level of energy as the initial report, in my opinion.
Claims about
or it should be even more.
Girls, the spokesperson told The Intercept back then, quote, "It's not true." And get this, when The Intercept reached out to the Times for comment on that story, again in early March, Times spokesperson Danielle Rhodes-Ha told The Intercept, "We stand by the story and are continuing to report on the issue of sexual violence on October 7th. Apparently now they've decided to report the truth long after it's been covered by independent journalists who bothered to do the work of vetting the original reporting's flimsy evidence. As for their original story, don't hold your breath for a retraction. They've simply added a bracketed addendum to the paramedic's testimony saying that new evidence undercuts his account. An incredible understatement and, frankly, a mockery of journalism. Cuts his addendum to the paramedic's testimony saying that new evidence undercuts his account. An incredible...
New evidence undercuts his account? I don't even know what that means. The account was false. It was wrong. We don't know whether they blatantly lied or it was wrong. And me saying we don't know if they blatantly lied is a stretch of grace anyway. This is, and this is not about just this situation. This is not about just this situation. The fact that we're rooting for sides as if we're rooting for a Super Bowl team or rooting for somebody in March Madness when people are getting killed is, it's a shot at humanity. It's disrespectful. If you all believe in God, if we believe in God, what could be more disrespectful than this? God gives us life, right? So God gives us life, and then we allow false reports to justify the killing of certain lives to a greater extent. Just report inaccurate facts. And if you're wrong, come out and say that. How we think, our mindset and how we think on certain things can lead to us justifying. Let's say this is what ends up happening. The way we think can lead to us justifying a genocide of a people. The way we think, it can lead to us justifying the genocide of a people. Like, where do we think this is going? Like, I hear it, I get it. Something happens to my people. There's going to be, you got to protect yourselves, especially when you're living in the fear of something that has happened less than 100 years ago with the Holocaust. But this just isn't right, yo. This just isn't right from a humanitarian standpoint. It doesn't matter to me what religion you identify with, what ethnicity you identify with. We are all here based on being God's children, right? This is what I hear. So if that's the case, why aren't we showing that? Instead, I feel like we're using God to justify doing more killing. And the only thing that does is cause another side to use God to justify killing. And then you have this back and forth where things never stop. There was never peace in the Middle East. What peace can come when you destroy something of mine and I feel resentment that you killed my father, you killed my mother, how could somebody have resentment? I'm talking about on either side. How could you ever call that peace. No, you're just waiting for the next situation to happen. You're just preparing for the next situation to happen. So that way you can get your get back. War is just going to lead to more war. So for all the Republicans that are jumping out here, I know I always criticize the Democrats. Here y'all go. For all the Republicans that are justified, and I've been very clear about this, in which it was like the second or third debate, the Republican debates for the nominee, and they're like bragging or competing with each other to show how many Palestinians they would destroy in order to rid the world of Hamas. What? Think about that. Think about that. We're supposed to be the greatest country in the world, right? We're supposed to hold people to the standards that we have ourselves, right? So then how are we allowing this? How are we okay with this? How are we okay with this? Okay, this land, we're fighting for land that we believe was ours. Okay, cool. So should every black person in America just wage war against descendants of white people and Europeans because we were enslaved here? And if you don't believe the lie that they told us that everybody came over from Africa, no, we were here. The American Indian, that's who we are. The American Indians did not just look like Mongolians or Mexicans. No, they were black people. Look at some of the descriptions. We've shown them on the show before. So they tell you a lie saying that you're from Africa because then you'll never have claim to this land. And maybe we're seeing exactly why they had to lie and say that everybody came from Africa, because they didn't want us to ever realize that we were on the land that was taken from us, because then maybe we would do something that's going on in the Middle East, right? So for my Jewish brothers and sisters, I got to ask, if you're okay in justifying all these things for those that are, justifying all these things based on protecting your homeland, the land that was yours, then how do you live in America, or how would you feel living in America on land that was not yours if the people who did own it started to come back and wage war against everybody who's living on the land? How would we feel about that? How would we feel if the bullied, the Native Americans, I tell you all the time, this is not a game of, where every single black person raises their hand and says, oh yeah, I have Native American blood in me. No, this is a fact. There's a reason why when you're growing up and learning these things in class, a lot of the kids in the class, when they go home and talk to their parents, there's a connection between Native Americans because we are the Native Americans. I have my card. My mom has her card that proves that she's a Native American, her tribe and everything. So how would you feel if all of those people that have been bullied and had their land taken now turn into the bully? How would we feel about this? And this is why my stance is that all war is bad. We have to figure out a way to figure out our differences, to work through our challenges without justifying killing people. It's not okay. It's ungodly. I don't care what's in this scripture, what's in that scripture. I really don't care. I'm telling you my conversations with God. I'm telling you my journey as I walk with God. So just like I can write down something that is influenced by God, or I can directly talk to God, I'm telling you my conversation. You take it or leave it. This is not right. If we're all God's children, then how can we justify what's going on? And how can we justify what has been going on? It's not just with this Israel-Palestine debate and this conflict. How can we justify it? How can you justify the Holocaust? How can you justify slavery? How can you justify slavery for that long of a period where you have your brothers and sisters that just have darker skin, right? That are more melanated. Your brothers and sisters where you justify enslaving them and not even considering them to be human beings. It's a mob mentality. It's a coward mentality. It's an ungodly mentality. It's a scared mentality. And until we move beyond that, we will never be able to advance society. We just won't. We just won't. You want to know why? Because a lot of the people in power don't care about anything that I'm speaking on. The most powerful people don't care about what I'm speaking on. Because they're just going to pay the New York Times, they're just going to pay MSNBC, they're just going to pay Fox News, they're just going to have the pharmaceutical companies, BlackRock, all these different big companies. They are just going to pay to have whatever is put out. And that's what the fear, in my opinion, of TikTok comes. When you can no longer control people's minds. When the people in power can no longer control the people's minds, they get nervous because they see it as a threat, and it is a threat. It's a threat to everything that they're pushing, and because it allows people to just see truth and make their own, draw their own conclusions based on that. Let's keep going.
Understatement and, frankly, a mockery of journalistic standards. Don't forget what the original Times story alleged. It claimed that a paramedic had found the bodies of 2 teenage girls in a room in Berry. One was lying on her side, boxer shorts ripped, bruises by her groin. The other was sprawled on the floor, face down, he said, pajama pants pulled to her knees, bottom exposed, semen smeared on her back. In contrast to all that detail.
Yeah, y'all heard that correctly. Do we need to run it back?
He said, pajama pants pulled to her knees, bottom exposed, semen smeared on her back. In contrast to all that detail, when the Times followed up with the paramedic to see if he still stood by that account, he declined to say and said he'd like to put the attacks behind him. Later, in his...
He'd like to put the attacks behind him. Well, I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would if you're lying. If you know that your lies contributed to manipulating the mindsets of millions of people to the point where they're justifying the killing of thousands of people, I'm sure you would want to move beyond that.
Israeli military spokesman told the Times, quote, the medic stood by his testimony, but might have misremembered the place he saw the teenage girls.
Wow.
I see. He misremembered a mass rape scene. Pajamas, semen smeared on a child's back. He misremembered, as one does. As the Green Zone and Electronic Intifada have been pointing out for months now, there simply isn't any corroborated eyewitness testimony, victim testimony, video evidence, or forensic evidence of mass rapes occurring on October 7th. The Screams Without Words report may stand as a generationally...
Yo, this is one of the biggest selling points that they used after the situation where they were pushing the idea of Palestinians not only attacking, but raping. And I have to ask, was it exaggerated based on the fact that maybe, because this is the question that comes to mind. Why would you feel the need to exaggerate these things so vividly? And to sell these lies to the public? Why would you feel the need to? Wouldn't it just be enough to say, like, hey, they attacked and killed people? Or were you thinking that that wouldn't be enough? Were you thinking that maybe people would sit back and say, well, yeah, they attacked and killed people because their land was taken? Were you worried about people having an objective viewpoint to the point where even if they agree that obviously people shouldn't be killed and attacked, but they wouldn't justify to the extent of what appears to be us moving in a genocidal direction. Were you worried about them not accepting that? So therefore, you cannot use it as an opportunity to destroy a group of people that, let's be real, there's been conflict with for a while. Well beyond any of our lifetimes. So I have to ask that. If you're exaggerating, if you're lying, if you're blatantly lying to change the way that I think about a situation, the way that I think about a conflict, why are you doing it? Did you not just think that I'd be on your, like, I don't know.
Egregious example of media malpractice that will be taught alongside weapons of mass destruction and Iraqis leaving incubator babies to die as false justifications for brutal war. While UN Special Representative Pramila Paten's report last month was sold by the...
All right, hold on one second. We're gonna, as much she did it, I really like her report in this, on this topic, this entire video. As much as I wish that I could let y'all see the entire video, we just don't have the time. So definitely feel free to check the rest of the video out as well as the rest of the first video out. But there are some things that I want to touch on. There are some things that I want to touch on outside the video and what I'm witnessing or what I think I'm observing. There's always cycles. And I think I started to see things changing, like things move in cycles, where I always looked at, like when you look at the old Southern Dixiecrats, Democrats, those were actually the people that owned the slaves, but then the party switched. And when you look at it, it's very simple. Conservative people want things to stay the same. People who are winning want things to stay the same. People who are not winning, or people who are looking to control a group of people that are not quote unquote winning and the most powerful people, they want to encourage things to change. When is it in your best interest to change? When I'm not at the top. When is it in your best interest for things to stay the same and rely on conservatism and conservative values of less government involvement? It's when I'm at the top. So what happens is we move in cycles, different cycles, cycles of need, cycles of want, cycles of lust. So everything works in cycles. And I was reminded with the Candace Owens situation, where here you have the Daily Wire that pushes for free speech, no censorship, right? Free speech. But as soon as something is said that offends your particular group that you identify with, then free speech and censorship. We can't do this free speech stuff. That's anti-Semitic. We need censorship of things that are anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic for just saying that you don't agree with what's going on with Israel and Palestine? Saying that you don't agree based on information that you received that was told to you as a lie, which we're clearly seeing. And now when we actually revisit it, reprocess it, think about it again, we're looking at it like, yo, this ain't it. Like, we understood what y'all said y'all were doing in the beginning, kind of understood that, whatever. I'm not saying that we understood it. Some of us didn't understand it at all. But now it's like, hold up, nah, we're not going for that. So just like things work in the cycles work in the convenience of the individual. So what's convenient for me? What's beneficial for me? That's going to determine where I am along that cycle. That's going to determine how I see things, what groups I identify with based on where I am on the spectrum of that cycle. And what do they say? That censorship and free speech only applies when people that you don't like are saying things that you don't like, or just people that are saying things that you do not like. It's easy for people to say free speech when everybody in the room is saying things that you agree with. But it only means something when somebody is saying something that is either coming from somebody that you don't like and or saying something that you don't agree with and don't like. So people, it's like consulting with your convenience. What my dad told me, like we consult with our convenience, and when we consult with our convenience, things are always going to work in cycles. Let's look at the cycle of now more black people being open to rock out with the Republican Party. Everything is moving in a cycle. Everything. And when you move in a cycle, and when you, for instance, like the Daily Wire example, the Daily Wire they'll get rid of Candace, they'll replace it with somebody else that now aligns with their new views. Or at least won't make them look stupid for having the views or aligning with people that have views that call out their hypocrisy directly. So they'll either bring one or the other on, or both. So as we're watching these things, I want us to always wonder, what lengths will people go in order to make their side look good and the other side look bad? What lengths will people go? So that's kind of where I wanted to focus on that. We had a bunch of other things to discuss, but I think we'll finish up there as far as the different videos that we'll watch. But I want and even the objectivity, maybe we'll save that for Wednesday. But I do want to share with y'all something. After everything that we just had, that heavy show, but I do want to share with y'all something about how proud, I talked about it earlier, how proud I am to be American. How proud I am to be a human being. And I wrote down some things. So, how proud am I to be American? We've got to a point where we are not using and controlling others with race baiting and differences. We've got to a point. This is why I'm proud of being American, because we've arrived at a point where we are not using and controlling others with race baiting and differences, where the majority of Black Americans feel that America has made a strong effort to make up for slavery and the oppression of Blacks. And all Americans are proud of these efforts as well as the results. I'm proud to be American because we've gotten to a point where we value each other's differences. We encourage each other's success. We are free thinkers that are not controlled by manipulation, but we all have the common cause of everyone excelling. That's how proud I am to be American. How proud am I to be human? We figured out how to work through our differences without going to war with each other. We figured out how to live in harmony with nature to ensure that we aren't destroying all the things that we actually need from nature. We figured out how to appreciate and respect everyone's spirituality and religious beliefs, and we learn and participate in each other's ceremonies and cultures. How proud am I to be human? Where we've embraced the golden rule of treating others the way we'd like to be treated. Where we have accomplished what MLK discussed in the promised land, the promised land. How proud am I to be human, where we are living in truth? That's how proud I am to be American and how proud I am to be human. The only catch is that it's April 1st and we'd all be April Fools to think that all of those things that I just said were true. We need a reset on values. We need a reset on purpose. And we need a reset on how we see each other. Because if we don't, then things are only going to look bleak for us. And we will be forced to have a big R reset in which God or whoever higher power we look up to simply decides that it's best to destroy everything and start with a new species, a new race. So the more we understand and embrace the fact that we're in this together, the more likely we are to have a positive outlook and to maximize our potential as human beings and brothers and sisters that all come from God, that are children of God. There's only one way here. There's only one way. And the only way is to unite on our similarities, and for that to be the driving force that's prioritized over killing over our differences. So with that, of course, we always end with 30 seconds, but for maybe these 30 seconds, maybe we can just use it to think to ourselves, to look at ourselves, to challenge ourselves to live up to a higher standard of godliness, to live up to a higher standard of being human species united under God. So for 30 seconds, I'm going to allow you to go wherever you feel that you need to go. So 30 seconds, we can begin. All right. Onward and upward, strength and honor. Y'all know why we're here, to elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, as well as to provide our communities, our village, our tribe, our families, everything we need to live in our purposeful abundance. Let's get to the bag, man. Let's put a lot of times we talk about the health and the wealth and prosperity that we put into the bag, but maybe we should not gonna say maybe. We need to include a certain level of righteousness in that bag as well. So with that, I'll see y'all soon. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all for tapping in. Please make sure that you like and maybe share with some friends. But either way, appreciate y'all rocking out with me. And let's always go back to revisiting our purpose, our who and our what, so that way we can identify our why. So I'll see y'all soon. Ew.